Historically, submarines had only been able to launch their weaponry towards 1 or 2 targets at the most. But the US Navy has been looking to change that with its new wave of Mk-48 torpedoes. As part of the 2018 American Rim of the Pacific exercises, the US Navy tested one of these projectiles against an old decommissioned warship. The impact cracked the vessel in half, leaving witnesses in awe. The biennial military exercises always include ally nations with access to the Pacific, but one country was disinvited from this edition. Still, that didn't stop it from spying on the maneuvers. An international exercise. RIMPAC, or the Rim of the Pacific, is the largest international maritime warfare exercise in the world. Held every 2 years during summers, the practice is run by the US Navy's Indo-Pacific Command located in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. With the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Hawaii National Guard's cooperation, the US Navy invites allied nations from the Pacific Rim to participate in the exercise. Over 20 countries usually accept the invitation, and the practice takes place with over 50 boats, submarines, aircraft, and thousands of personnel. RIMPAC was created in the 1970s following an unstable period for Asia. With the communists taking over China, Korea, and Vietnam, the US developed a maritime alliance to bolster stability in the region and facilitate armed forces interoperability in case of conflict. In the latest RIMPAC iterations, China deployed surveillance to monitor the exercises carried out by the Americans and their allies. The Chinese participation has been disputed by US officials and allies since 2016. China's aggressive expansion through the South China Sea and its militarization of artificial islands have angered countries worldwide. For RIMPAC's 2018 edition, the 26th in its history, China was disinvited through direct orders from the Pentagon. But that did not stop the Chinese from sending a surveillance ship off the coast of Hawaii to spy on the military maneuvers. Rumors had spread that the US would display a new weapon for their SINKEX, or sinking exercise. In these practices, real weapons are used to sink and destroy empty vessels to test their effectiveness. China was particularly interested in the outcome. A new kind of torpedo. Shortly before RIMPAC 2018 was launched, the US Navy announced that it would use an Mk-48 heavyweight torpedo to analyze how to extend its range by bolstering the engine propelling the missile. According to press statements released by the Office of Naval Research and Aerojet Rocketdyne, extending the torpedo's range was intended to keep the US submarine far away from its enemy and let a third-party vehicle relay the torpedo's targeting data. Brian Clark, an analyst from the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments, told Defense News, quote, "If you can extend that range to 50 or more miles, you can attack submarines without your sub having to hold that target organically with its sensors." Clark also specified that with third-party targeting, a submarine with 30 torpedoes could be used as a submerged arsenal, drastically increasing its firepower from the usual 2 targets within range. The vessel chosen for the SINKEX exercise was the decommissioned USS Racine. The old ship was a Vietnam War relic, built in San Diego in 1969. During the conflict, it was used to transport soldiers and supplies to American forces fighting the Vietnamese. The 522-foot-long Newport-class amphibious vessel weighed more than 5,100 tons and was decommissioned in 1993 after 22 years of service. In order to sink the ship, it had to comply with a series of strict regulations by the Environmental Protection Agency. The USS Racine was cleansed of any hazardous materials, and petroleum was extracted from tanks and piping. According to a statement from the Navy, quote, "Each SINKEX is required to sink the hulk in at least 6,000 feet of water and at least 50 nautical miles from land. Surveys are conducted to ensure that people and marine mammals are not in an area where they could be harmed during the event." Once the ship was cleaned and certified by the EPA, the exercises began. A ship loses its back. The exercise took place on July 12, 2018. Land, subsurface, and air-based forces took part in the USS Racine sinking. The Australian Air Force launched a Harpoon anti-ship missile from a P-8A Poseidon aircraft. Japanese PC-3 Orion aircraft were used to locate the Racine in a simulated mission. American Grey Eagle UAVs and other AH-64 helicopters also participated in locating the enemy vessel. When the Racine was found, it was pummeled with heavy ordnance from Japanese Type 12 land-based anti-ship missiles and American guided multiple launch rocket systems. The USS Racine was still standing as if ready for one final hit. Smoke was coming from its deck, but the hull was intact. It was then that the USS Olympia, a nuclear submarine, launched an Mk-48 heavyweight torpedo at it. Footage from the impact shows the weapon's potency. Upon impact, the USS Racine is seen shaking from side to side, even lifting above the water. A massive splash rises, and the entire hull from its midsection seems to disappear. An hour after being hit, the USS Racine finally sank. RIMPAC 2018 came to an end with a bang, and a few miles away, a Chinese general intelligence ship was documenting it all.